First impressions of the polycarbonate bodied or plastic bodied or ceramic bodied, whatever it is, HTC One X are that it's the company's best handset in years. The way the screen melds into the curved body is very Nokia Lumia-like, except that this runs Android, of course. More than that, it runs Android 4, HTC's first handset to do so, of which more later. It is big though, bigger than everything I've tried recently apart from the pseudo-tablet Galaxy Note. Yet the HTC One X still claims to be, unashamedly, a phone. Luckily, it's also big on features and is undoubtedly one of the flagship devices of 2012, knocking the likes of the Galaxy S2 at last off the Android top spot. The main reason why the One X is so big is the 4.7-inch RGB screen, fashioned in Super LCD2, and it's utterly gorgeous, indoors and out. Phone screen tech has come so far in the last 3 years. Amazingly, given the size, the One X is still 30 grams or so lighter than the previous HTC flagship, the ill-fated Sensation, partly down to the unibody construction, I think. There's no loss of a premium feel, but you do lose access to the phone's battery. There's no door here. Boo. It's a sealed-in 1800 mAh lithium polymer cell, mind you, so just about as good as it gets. And you also don't get a micro SD slot here, so you're kind of limited to the built-in 26 gigabytes or so of free mass memory, plus 2 gig for your apps. Enough for you? Hopefully. In fact, the only slot in the otherwise seamless case is for the micro SIM here on the top with a cute little metal HTC widget to eject the SIM caddy, though a paperclip will do. There's a headphone socket, a data charging MHL port, and a volume rocker here on the right-hand side, along with a power button on top. Now this is a pet hate, since on this size of phone it makes the phone virtually unusable one-handed, at least without some rather precarious juggling mid-air one-handed while holding onto a tube strap or a shopping bag in the other hand. This might be a showstopper for some. A side power button, a Samsung style, would have been a lot easier to manage. You'll notice that I didn't mention a camera shutter button. Sadly, there's nothing here. The One X is all screen driven, though there's some justification for this in that the software really needs 2 shutter buttons since you can take videos and photos at the same time. So here I've started capturing a video in high def and oh, that looks cool, let me grab it as a still. And that one. No problem. In fact, it turns out you can actually grab stills later on, albeit at a much lower 2 megapixel resolution, from videos as they're played back after the fact. Plenty of flexibility then to make up for the lack of a shutter key. Slightly less forgivable is the ultra exposed camera. There is 0 recessing of the transparent camera plastic and the camera protrudes. So you've got a camera, quote, glass that's mounted so as to make it the point at which the entire phone rests when you put it on a surface, the point which will catch on everything. And the manufacturers don't recess the optical bit in any way? That's just crazy. Photos are pretty good though, at least on this Mint unit. Have a look at some of these samples. They're up with results from the iPhone 4S and Galaxy S2, but again, fall somewhere short of those from the camera specialist Nokia N8 that I love so much. Indoors in low light, the One X does very well actually, with an f/2.0 aperture and an LED flash with 5, count them 5 intensity levels. For posed shots, you'll get good results, better than on any other smartphone without proper xenon flash. Test video at the 720p resolution option on the HTC One X. Pretty good continuous autofocus, pretty good sound, pretty good picture. There's not a lot to complain about here. Nothing obvious indeed, though do note that the bit rate used and the compression ratios, the bit rate's low and the compression rate's high, which does have its own pros and cons. Inside the One X, though, is where much of its strengths lie. There's a Tegra 3 quad-core processor. It's supposed to be fast when it needs to be and to be frugal on power when idling. You won't get through multiple days on a charge here, though, but you shouldn't run out of power before bedtime on normal use. A gigabyte of RAM sounds a lot, but you only actually get 202 megabytes of free RAM after booting. It's amazing how hungry Android is these days. Mind you, this is still just about the fastest Android experience I've ever had. As an example, the One X boots from scratch in under 30 seconds, and I was able to load the full desktop version of the Engadget website in 14 seconds flat. And with the 720p resolution in landscape mode, I often didn't need to zoom in at all to read web page text. Very tablet-like, dare I say. Sumptuous viewing angles too, and for once, auto brightness seemed to be pitched at just the right level. Well done, HTC. Although this is Android 4.0.3, you'll notice things look slightly different. The One X runs HTC Sense 4, seemingly retaining all the good bits from previous versions of Sense, including the neat home screen helicopter view, without any of the bloat. Though admittedly, how would I tell if the code was bloated with a quad-core processor powering through everything? Honestly, the slowest thing about these modern phones is me and my brain. The bottleneck is rarely the phone. Sense has little touches everywhere. The multitasking view is now an on-screen carousel, just to be different, though I did prefer the Google original. And HTC has added extra widgets. There are now a staggering 100 or so widgets to pick from. One thing's not changed then, plenty to fiddle with on an HTC device. Plenty of other extras are sprinkled throughout the device. When you hook up for the first time, you get a full Dropbox client plus 25 gigabyte free space for 2 years. I guess you'd have to pay after that though. There's HTC's movie editor, the editing version of Polaris Office and its PDF viewer, TuneIn Radio, plus the usual extra stores, 7 Digital and HTC Watch. Not too much bloat though overall, and I loved the Show Me system of on-device tutorials. Who needs a paper manual these days? Video playback is very good, as you might expect on this display, though codec compatibility wasn't perfect. Some of my AVIs and WMV files failed to play. Still, MP4 is solid, and there's the usual superb Android HD YouTube client. As you can hear, the speakers are loud enough, but quite tinny. As is usual with HTC, I do wish they'd spend about another 50p per component and get a decent speaker in. NFC is built in, as you might expect, for 2012, with possibilities to beam things Android to Android or to read tags, as shown here. Or one day to facilitate phone wireless payments. I tell you, NFC is going to be ubiquitous by the end of this year. I was disappointed by the One X's battery life, I have to say. Admittedly, I was rather hammering it this week in geek testing mode, but I can guarantee it will need nightly charging in normal use. I guess that's all to be expected with a 4.7-inch LCD screen and quad-core processor though. Overall, I was impressed by the One X. After 5 years of making plastic and sometimes metal rubbish, it feels as though HTC has finally fulfilled its destiny. This smartphone is its biggest accomplishment and is light years ahead of the problematic desire and sensation ranges of previous generations. Minor caveats over camera vulnerability and speaker tone aside, there's very little for me to complain about here, unusually. The One X feels, holistically, a high-quality product. Yes, it's expensive, but for the first time in ages, I feel like HTC buyers are getting their money's worth. The smooth, sleek, and super fast HTC One X.